With me here live from Copenhagen, Denmark, is Paul Lightfoot and William Armstrong, choreographer and director, respectively, of Unspoken. Thanks so much for joining me here.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
Paul, first of all, our deepest condolences on the loss of your father. I can't even imagine how challenging it was for you to have him being ill in the hospital and you're being unable to visit him. Do you want to share with us what that was like, or would you rather move on?
No, no, I don't mind sharing at all because I think so many people have been through it. It has a relevance, and um, as I was saying, you're never the right age to lose a parent, but that moment in the pandemic when things were still terribly unclear, there was so much concern and fear about what was going to happen in this period, and for him to become so ill and to contract corona and then have to be in the hospital alone. Yeah, it was a harrowing time. Yeah, it
Mm.
wasn't easy.
How and when did you know that you needed to create a dance for him?
Well, he can answer that better than me because in a way it started from William quite beautifully. If let's, I hate to say on social media, but that's how actually we connected.
Well, I was
And
going to ask you that. How did you
yeah,
connect?
yeah, yeah. He
So,
just wrote to me, and I never normally write to these sort of personal messages. And yeah, so William
Yeah,
came suggesting, no, you tell him better than me.
yeah. I was working on a less clear idea at the time and reached out to Paul as a kind of moonshot, as a director that never had any dance on my portfolio. I reached out to him on Instagram and said that I was working on a project to do with the frustrations of lockdown, and I thought that dancers who are usually, you know, their life is touching and moving and being in a company of dancers, I thought it would be a really good contradiction to explore. But and so initially I was hoping that Paul would choreograph something that I was roughly working out in my head, but it became very clear that Paul had actually just lost his father 3 days
Yeah,
before before I
right after.
contacted him, and it became clear that the story was actually going to be about Paul, and Paul was willing to explore that grief that he was going through and let me document it as a total stranger at the time, and slowly through interviews and recordings of the rehearsals we were able to piece together the process of creating a dance, but also the process of Paul saying goodbye to his dad.
had you seen that Paul had lost his dad, or were you just reaching out to him as a choreographer?
Honestly, I didn't know. I was a bit I blended my way into onto Paul's profile and just thought, I wonder if this guy would ever write back to me. I'm not, a dance director, and actually I think he had just posted his last post was a picture of him and his father, and I didn't read the comments. But after our first phone call, I
I
remember
never
Paul.
knew.
Remember you said to me,
Yeah. It was
if I
like 3 days after he died. I remember it was
yeah
late at night. I was upstairs in my attic, and
yeah
I was like mindlessly scrolling, just
yeah
for something to fill the space a little bit, I think, because everything was so strange. And then the moment we spoke, I suddenly had this feeling like, yeah, this is for a reason.
Wow,
And
how
why
cathartic
does it
that
have to
must
be
be.
negative? It can be something beautiful. And I wanted to honor him so much. The funeral was a fiasco, and then just it was great. It was good. We spoke, and it just felt, wow, yeah, I want to do this. So
So
I
how
suppose
did
it was filling my grief somewhere.
I want to ask each of you, because I'm sure it took each of you to figure this out. How did you do it technically? Technically, how did you choreograph via Zoom? And William, how did you technically direct via Zoom?
Okay.
I mean, I come from commercials and ad world, which is highly visual, and the first thing was me letting go of that a little bit because I realized we were going to be creating a film on Zoom. The way I'm talking to you now, where you've got no control over camera or lighting or camera movement. It really relied on Paul, his story, and his willingness to share. And yeah, at some point during the process, I had imagined shooting everything remotely as well, because with remotes, you can set up cameras around a venue and do everything in that kind of social distance, um, in that way. But as the dance progressed and I saw the rehearsals coming together and becoming more and more beautiful, I felt like it wouldn't have done the dance justice to do it in a static setup camera way. So then we actually delayed the shoot by a month in order to coincide with the reopening of churches in Denmark. And so I could be there physically with a very small crew. I think there were 8 of us to film Sebastian. And side note, I had never met Paul up to this point, and I think that the whole thing was so personal for Paul that the day before the shoot, I was scouting in the church and just heard this voice shouting over through the space, and Paul had managed to sneak into Denmark, and
they can arrest me now.
And had managed to make it there, to be there physically for the performance. So that was the first time we ever met, was the day before the final shoot, which is the final part of the film.
It was a deeply emotional moment, actually.
Wow, I can't even imagine. Tell us a little bit about Sebastian. He was such a gorgeous dancer.
Yeah, he's a gem. And to be honest, part of my conditions, the only condition I had with William when I said, well, let's do this project, but I said, but I want to do it with this man, because, and coincidentally, he lives in Copenhagen. So the fact that they were on this side of the border made it clear to me, and he's just one of the most genuine artists I've ever met. Let's put talent on one side, but as a human being, he's so present, and that was what was so beautiful. I was like, who's going to be something that could be a reflection of my father? I wanted somebody who I knew, and somebody that I could work with, and someone I knew I could relate with through a Zoom, because that isn't easy to create work, via a camera. The whole thing about our profession is kinetic.
Well, it's a spiritual film, and an inspiring film, and I thank you both for sharing it with us. I hope you're still out on the festival circuit, and that a lot more people get to see your film. Thank you both so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.